begin. We can probably, as you can see, we will be recording this. I just want to note to people, this event is available in English, Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin. Please do choose. They have the appropriate language channel for that. That is available. That you should see that in the bottom of the screen for you with the kind of little world button. So just want to let people get settled in that for a moment, and get us set to streaming, and then we'll begin. Okay. So I will put myself on spotlight for a moment to give a quick introduction. So thank you to everybody who is joining us on this inordinately hot Thursday evening to talk about the upcoming election that we have for the 9th Suffolk. As a reminder, this is a kind of a May 2nd and May 30th special election for the 9th Suffolk district. That this event, my name, I realized I should have said, my name is Jonathan Cohn. I am the chair of the Boston Ward 4 Democratic Committee. This event started as a nonpartisan candidate forum. However, due to extenuating circumstances, one of the candidates has dropped out of the race. However, we wanted to keep this event going forward in more of a town hall format because of the organizations involved having a strong belief in community engagement and civic participation in the communities of the 9th Suffolk across the city and across the state. So wanted to thank and recognize the organizations co-sponsoring this event. I'm just going to read them off, name them, and then invite them to say a quick word about their organization. And again, for those with just joining, please do choose the appropriate language channel. We do have this available in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese. So this event tonight is being kind of co-sponsored by the Boston Ward 4 Democratic Committee, the Chinese Progressive Association, EVA, Boston, MassVOTE, and Reclaim Roxbury. Wanted to invite either Sophie or Karen, if either of you here and want to say a few words about CPA, I can bring you up. Either of you are available to be spotlighted. If not, I will go on to another co-host.
It may be the interpretation feature, Jonathan.
Oh, is that?
If they're in the interpretation room, they might not be able to.
Okay, that is a good flag. I will then bring up. I did see Vanessa Calderon Rosado from EBA. Vanessa, if you wanted to say a few quick words about EBA, I can spotlight you right now.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Vanessa Calderon Rosado, Chief Executive Officer of EBA, Inquilinos, Boricuas, and Acción, which is a nationally recognized community development corporation dedicated to empower individuals and families to improve their lives and achieve social and economic mobility through high-quality, affordable housing, education, financial and resident empowerment, and arts programs. We're delighted to be here and partner with all the other organizations and hear from Mr. John Moran. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And let me bring up Vanessa Snow from MassVOTE.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Snow. I'm the Policy and Organizing Director at MassVOTE. MassVOTE is a nonpartisan nonprofit that does civic engagement work across the state, especially in working class and communities of color. And so we're really excited to be co-hosting this event with this many organizations as we partner with these organizations every day to do what we can to increase voter engagement, voter turnout. And so thank you, Mr. Moran, for taking the time to meet with the voters here.
Okay, so Karen, I'll put you on spotlight to talk a little bit about CPA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Chen. I'm with the Chinese Progressive Association. We are actually over at the EBA community room now. We have, let's see, about 40 of us here. We have Spanish channel going, Mandarin, and Cantonese. So thank you so much and for hosting or having this forum. We're excited about election. We think that it's a really important way for our community to have a voice. And especially in elections like this, there are many things that will impact the day-to-day life. And we want to involve residents and important stakeholders to be part of this conversation.
Awesome, thank you so much. And let me bring up Armani White from Reclaim Roxbury.
Hey everyone, Armani White here, Executive Director at Reclaim Roxbury. We're a community organization founded in 2015 to make sure there's community-led decision-making and local planning, and we advocate for affordable housing and do policy advocacy as well. And yeah, we're really excited to participate and co-sponsor this forum. So folks in Roxbury on that side of 9th Suffolk have an opportunity to hear from candidates, and I guess this candidate, now that there's just one. So thank you for showing up, Mr. Moran, and I'm gonna go on mute now and pass it to the next person. Thanks everyone for coming.
Awesome, thank you so much. Again, want to remind people we do have this available in several languages, like in English, and do choose kind of English appropriately if that is kind of preferred language, Spanish, Cantonese, and Mandarin for this event tonight. And again, Jonathan Cohn, Chair of the Boston Ward 4 Democratic Committee. Ward 4 makes up a large part of the 9th Suffolk. We cover parts of Back Bay, Fenway, and the South End. I would like to now formally invite up our wonderful moderator for the evening, Cheryl Clyburn Crawford. Cheryl Clyburn Crawford is the Executive Director of MassVOTE, and she is a former Executive Board Chair of Emerge Massachusetts. She sits on the Women's Pipeline for Change's Oversight and Planning Board. She is an active member of the Order of the Eastern Star, Prince Hall affiliated organization, and she is a member of the Attorney General's Advisory Council on Racial Justice and Equity and a board member of American Promise. How she has any time to do anything else amidst all of that is impressive. So I'm delighted to hand things over to Cheryl Clyburn Crawford, and I will bring up the candidate now as well. So.
Great. Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us for this 9th Suffolk State Representative, which was a candidates forum, which is now a town hall style meeting. Thank you so much, Mr. Moran, for joining us, but you will have the floor all to yourself this evening. And so without further ado, I want to go ahead and get us started. And so what I'd like to offer you is opening statements. You'll have 3 minutes to do an opening statement.
Great. And so at first, if I can, before I start the timer, I wonder if I could acknowledge the fact that I just want to acknowledge the other candidate, and I haven't had spoken with her, but I just want to acknowledge how difficult it is to be a candidate and how much the time it takes and how difficult it is. So while I haven't gotten details, I just want to acknowledge her effort and respect the fact that she was able to put her hat in the ring and work hard for the seat. So if that's okay, Cheryl, can I start the clock now? And I'd also like to thank all the sponsors as well. So am I okay now to do the 3 minutes?
Okay, we'll let them cheat, Jonathan. Whoever's doing time, go ahead and start the timer.
Sorry, Cheryl.
It's all good.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Moran, and I'm a son of Scranton, Pennsylvania. I was born and raised with a big Irish family. 4 brothers and 1 sister, and let me tell you, the sister ruled the house, and she still does. You know, we didn't really have much growing up. We lived ourselves in public housing for about 3 years in Scranton. We made our way up to a town called Clyburn, and then I got lucky with, you know, work hard, but I got some scholarships to go to college and then to Japan. And I made my way to Boston as a sort of young gay man, went to the Fletcher School, and then found this wonderful community in the South End that gave me so much. And I was able to, you know, work, but also volunteer for organizations like the Concord Square Association, other organizations. And I feel now there's a calling for me to fight for the rights of our most vulnerable and for community-led development by partnering with groups such as the D7 Advisory Council, Tanya Fernandez-Anderson, and ADCO. We're actually in a crisis right now with 3 areas, right? Housing has never been more problematic. There's a big divide in our city, and we need to fight displacement as hard as we can. And after 50 years, reproductive freedom in our country, in our city, and our state is at risk. We need to really hit that head on, and as your state legislator, I will. LGBTQ+ freedoms should not be taken for granted, and I can use my experience for the mental health and addiction crisis. My problem-solving ability is at an unprecedented level, centered on mass and caste. And I know I can use my experience and to make a real difference on Beacon Hill. I look forward to telling you more about how I'm going to tackle these issues on Beacon Hill in this forum, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
Great, thank you. So we'll go ahead and get started right away here with our first question. You know, it's very fresh on our minds. We just lost a great community activist and organizer, and that in Mel King. The late Mel King held this seat from 1973 to 1983 and set a standard for leadership for racial and economic justice in the city. How would you seek to continue that legacy in this seat? How do you ensure that residents in your district achieve economic mobility?
Well, I had the great honor of being an usher, Cheryl, at that ceremony for that great leader. And one thing I learned a lot before, but I learned a lot in the ceremony as well, that we have a lot in common, that we have a huge amount of passion for affordable housing, which the great Mel King led that effort. And I feel like my platform of bringing more housing of all types to the city with a great model of tent city is something that I want to continue that legacy. And I work very hard to make sure we have that. I also feel that, you know, on a lighter side, I never knew he was a musician. I am too. And so I feel that he was just such a Renaissance man. And I really feel that with Representative Rushing as well, there's such a legacy, and then John Santiago. I feel that there is social justice, and there's a divide between our Roxbury residents, our Polish Triangle residents, our South End residents. From one house to another, there's a big economic divide, and I will fight to make sure that we bridge that gap on the shoulders of those great leaders, including Mel King.
Great, thank you. The next question: the State House is dominated by inertia. What would you do if elected to break past such inertia to deliver on the policies that would improve our district, the city, and the state as a whole? I mean, what do you see are the challenges in passing this urgent and common sense policies at the State House?
I feel here, Cheryl, that I've brought about a lot of change in big corporations, and one might say that's not analogous to, you know, the city or the State House, but in many ways it is. So, for example, at Liberty Mutual, I brought about Pride at Liberty, right? That was change. That was social justice. We weren't even acknowledging at one point that gay people even existed. But I think more so with our policies and specific policies that we want as progressives, I feel very much that my change management background, that I leverage really simple tools to make people aware of why we want to change and bring people along, not with blunt force, but with persuasion, using models such as ADCAR, which is a model that you use in change management in many organizations, that we want to bring people along, inform them about why we want to do something, get them invested in the desire to do that. And really, I think I like to lead with bringing people to the problem. So if we want to solve a problem, whatever it is in our district, we need to bring the legislators to the problem and have them go see the problem rather than sit behind their desks in a beautiful mahogany desk in Beacon Hill. So I think a lot of my activism work, where we bring people to the problem and we solve problems together, will be very beneficial in Beacon.
Great, thank you. Mr. Moran, passing policy requires building broad coalitions. Can you name an example of a time you successfully built a broad coalition to achieve a desired outcome?
Yeah, I think something from our community that comes to mind is, a specific development that was about to occur and as you probably know, Cheryl, I'm very much invested in fair and community-led development. And I came upon this project about 3.5 years ago, wherein a large privately owned developer, huge corporation, was about to eliminate green space on a parcel that is close to where I live, and without taking into account the residents of affordable housing. So I formed a coalition broadly, reaching out to every politician that I knew in the town, and they were very receptive, by the way, and they came and saw the situation. I want to just commend them. But I built a coalition around the South End to say, we can't have this happen. And we did not push back against any development, because that would be talking out both sides of my mouth. We need a development, but we also we can't take the rights away of children who want to play in a park, or this was a large green parcel that was going to be taken away. So we came up with a solution, an alternative. I built a coalition, and we came up with a solution to an alternative solution for this parcel. So I think that's a good example of how I can affect change and bring people together in a coalition to positively impact the community.
Okay, great. Thank you. Boston is facing a crisis around housing affordability and displacement. What would be your top priorities in ensuring that the neighborhoods of the district can be placed where people can afford to live at any stage in life? How will you improve the homeroom petition that filed by Mayor Wu?
Yeah, so I absolutely, and I want to just clarify, the homeroom petition, you're talking about rent stabilization, right? So I wholeheartedly agree that this time we need special, it's a crisis. We need to hit it head on, and that includes rent stabilization. And it's a very reasonable proposal that's on the table. But more so, Cheryl, what I've talked about, and I think folks that when I'm knocking on doors agree with me, is that we need to build housing of all types, and that includes, in my work with the District 7 Advisory Council in Roxbury, and part of this district is District 9 is Lower Roxbury. They want affordable ownership as well. So I'm very excited to look at a couple programs at the state level, including the Commonwealth Builder Fund, that we need to look at very seriously, and I would reach out to every leader on the Beacon Hill to see if we can get more state monies. It's only $60 million right now. We need more money, but we need to lower the threshold. It's right now 70 to 120% of area median income, and middle class families, most of them can't afford that amount. So we need to. So the short answer is we need to invest aggressively in making sure that we don't lose our middle class, lower middle class. And I would also make sure, darn sure, that with the sunsetting of urban renewal, we do not displace our affordable housing residents, that we make it very clear that the covenants need to stay in place if we sunset urban renewal.
Great, thank you. And one more question before we roll into a speed round.
Okay.
Let's see. Boston, how do you ensure that the state-owned land, the MBTA yard in Whitehead Circle, can be used for public good?
So again, that is a large parcel, and I think that it speaks to the need for a planning first approach. It speaks to the need for community engagement upfront in any development process. Today, we do not have that. Today, we have the BPDA, Boston, the development agency, speaking directly to developers. And when they speak to developers, there's a lot of backroom stuff that happens before our large development process begins. So I've worked with ADCO to co-author a presentation that we presented to everyone we could possibly do on the panel of the commission on the mayor's commission to have community-led development. So that parcel or any other large parcel, and we've the District 7 Advisory Council has pushed for this as well, is let's do planning first. Let's imagine the art of the possibility, what can be on that parcel. Let's plan for that. And then let's let the developers come in and develop. What we have today is a land grab, which is frustrating and causing displacement in Roxbury and parts of the South End, and we can't have that. So the answer is, let's embrace the mayor's proposal. Let's embrace the rent stabilization. I have talked, in interest of full disclosure, I've talked about making sure we tighten the language so large corporations don't benefit from rent stabilization at the expense of individuals. But the bottom line is planning first. Let's stop this land grab. Let's you know, as you know from District 7, I've been advocating and supporting the other leaders to say we need a moratorium on building right now so we can figure out what we want our city to look like, just like Chicago did, just like other mature cities.
Right. Okay, we're going to move into a speed round, and these are yes, no. But seeing that we only have one candidate, if you feel the need to expound on, you know, short explanation around it, feel free. The current home rule petition for Boston to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in municipal elections. Will you support this?
Yes.
Will you support same-day registration in which eligible citizens can register or update their registration at the polls?
Yes.
Great. Will you support legislation to strengthen the workplace protections and protect the collective bargaining rights of gig workers?
Yes, and I've talked to many of unions over the course of the last few weeks who are very much in support of that as well.
Fantastic. Legislation to holding employers benefiting from subcontracting accountable for wage theft and other wage violations. Will you support this?
I absolutely support that. I think it's one of the biggest things that, you know, tomorrow talking to the carpenters union. It's their biggest concern. And it's real. It happens, you know, in my experience in the private sector, it's happened as well. And so, yes, I support that.
Perfect. The TOPA, or Tenant Opportunity to Purchase bill, which would enable cities and towns to pass ordinances that give tenants the right of first refusal to join together to purchase a building when it goes on the market. Is this something that you could get behind?
You probably know that that's an absolute yes for me on that one.
Great. Boston's proposed real estate transfer fee on transactions over $2 million and legislation to enable cities and towns to pass similar measures.
Yes, and I think that's an important component because I think it'll allow for some funding for more affordable housing.
Will you support the HERO bill, which would double the deeds and excise tax to create funds for climate mitigation in affordable housing and home ownership?
Yes, and the reason I would support that is we need to do, from an environmental perspective, we need to do a lot of things in the city of Boston. And one of the things is we need to convert these buildings into get rid of fossil fuels and convert them into energy efficient structures. And we have now ARPA money, but the ARPA money is going to run out, right? So we need to make sure that we're thinking about it from a state level as well to put in funding for this. So yes, I would support it.
Great. The last of the speed round. The rent stabilization home rule petition filed by Mayor Michelle Wu and passed by the Boston City Council. Will you support this?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to go back to regular questions, but
I want to repeat though that I saw a great legislation in short-term rentals, and my community has been impacted by large corporations taking advantage of loopholes in that short-term rental in that ordinance, and that those are healthcare exemptions and lodging house exemptions. And the spirit of that law was for individual homeowners not to have not to be able to rent their places more than 60 days. What's happened is that's true and that's enforced, but large corporations have huge buildings in around the city, including on the end of my street, that are complete Airbnbs run by Texas-based companies, 100% Airbnb, and that's displacing people. So what I just want to make sure, without having seen the legislation, without being schooled in and I need to learn, right? This is a job you learn every day. I want to just make sure that the rent stabilization legislation won't do the same thing, and then mom and pop landlords, if they live in one building and they have another building, they play by the rules. Their corporations figure out a way around it. That's where I really want to make sure. I mean, the mayor is amazing. She probably has figured that out already, and the team has figured out that won't happen. But I just want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, great. All right, back to our 2-minute questions. John, what would you do if elected to increase civic engagement in the 9th Suffolk district?
So I have to say that I feel that I guess I shouldn't say my predecessor. I said the former John Santiago, who held this previously, Byron Rushing, Mel King, right? So they were around and ubiquitous, right? So they were everywhere. And so the reason I want to do this role, if elected full time, is that I think the only way to understand and increase civic engagement is to go to every meeting you possibly can, right? So in our Chinese Progressive Association the other day, I promised that I would be with those in those meetings. I was this morning at the Susan Ballas house. Hi everybody, if you're on there. I think they were gonna join this evening. And that's a vulnerable population that needs to be heard from and would have a huge input on how housing policy is developed within District 9. So I think it's a little bit of a long answer, but I think it's me being everywhere I possibly can, every meeting, being available, listening, and then finding out from District 9 residents where they may not feel like they're engaged civically. I think the development space, I'm pretty clear on that. We need input up front from on that, and that's one of their biggest issues. But other issues as well, I'd be willing to learn and listen and understand where we don't have enough civic input.
Yeah, it's critical. Mass incarceration is a public health crisis. You're well aware of that. What is your solution to address this issue?
So, as you know, and I've said, well, you may not know, I've said throughout this campaign that the approach of thinking about mass incarceration from a mental health and an addictive, thinking of it holistically, what is, I'm a problem solver, and I often look in the work I've done, you have to look at what the root cause is. And a lot of the addictive, sad, situations folks are in, it starts with mental health. So the holistic health approach, if you will, to mass incarceration is absolutely the right thing. I think, though, there's opportunity, Cheryl, to add additional tools in the toolkit, to add on, to collaborate, to bring state funding and state solutions additional, because there's been a lot of state support. But how can I partner? How can I partner with the mayor's office? How can we bring more resources? And I think one of the things is that whether it's the Long Island Bridge rebuild or other state lands, we need a recovery center that is a state-of-the-art recovery center that has mental and addictive counseling, holistic, looking at the person. I've said it before, but I really mean this. The reason I wanted mass incarceration to be one of the 3 things that I focus like a laser on is I come from a family of addiction, right? And so I've lost family members to addiction. And I know, heart of hearts, that in addition to what we have at MassVOTE today, some type of holistic recovery center that gives people a second chance to really be with their brothers and sisters and build a community and get into recovery, it would be an additional help. And I also have been talking a lot about regional and citywide health centers, and why can't they help with needle exchanges? I'm a gay man. I benefited so much from the Fenway Health system, and I feel that was a place I felt that I go there because I'm comfortable. Is it Whittier? Is it other places that folks might feel more comfortable going to get treatment? It should be treated like any other ailment. It should be treated like any other ailment. And I feel like we just need to add those tools. And then shelter is the third pillar. We need to bring people from, allow for transitional housing. And I just want to acknowledge all the good work that's been done. And this community understands and has empathy for the folks that are suffering from addiction. And I just really want this to be one of my focus on the state house level.
Thank you. What do you see as the biggest potentials in this current legislative session for big policy wins, and how would you seek to influence them?
So I think there's a couple things. I think from what exists today, I have been watching very carefully to make sure that from the fair share amendment perspective, that the monies go into what they say it's going in. And so far it looks pretty good. Looks like there's a percentage or two difference, but it does sound directionally that the money for the $1 billion will be 500 million, and 500 million will go for transportation and education. So I think I just want to be there and just really and really just work with the chair of the Ways and Means Committee and others, just to make sure that it's additive, it's over a baseline, that the money really is going to be extra, because we can't have our schools like they are in the city. We can't have our transportation system operate as it does. We need to invest. So that would be one thing. I also think that we should potentially, look into. I think one of the biggest thing I hear walking around, whether everywhere in District 9, every corner of District 9, Polish Triangle, Roxbury, Copley Square, everywhere I go, childcare is a crisis. And so the legislation that's going to put money in and cap the childcare costs at 7% of income. I think that percentage is right. We need to go that direction. It's not sustainable for people to live in this expensive city and pay an additional salary to have their child go to daycare. So I think a lot of the efforts that need to be around that legislation, and I would love for that, because again, I'm just the vessel communicating and advocating on behalf of what I'm hearing from the residents of District 9, and that's a really important one.
Okay, we are almost at time, but I did get a couple of questions in the chat. And since it's one candidate, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask just a couple of more questions.
Sure.
The first one came in from Ben Siegel, and it says, I'm a retired pediatrician. What is your view of universal early child programs, and would you support funding for community organizations to support children and families? For example, Higher Ground and SMART from the Start. Do you support the Common Start, this kind of Common Start legislation?
So yes, I mean, Ben, yeah, I mean, we agree on most things, and this is one that I couldn't agree with you more. And it's, as a pediatrician, I'm sure that you see the same thing that most of citizens of District 9 do, which is that education is everything, right? So without education, you're not gonna be able to function in society. Our most vulnerable populations within District 9 would really benefit from free pre-K and for the Common Start program, also advocating for care for children as well. So I would love to talk to you about it more, because what I know in heart of hearts and thinking about what the governor is saying, et cetera, is that it's imperative that we invest in our future and invest in our children. And we need to especially invest in our less advantaged children so that they can, I was glad to see, for example, even though the free meal part of the legislation seems to be going through now with Margaret Healy's like renewing that, because I think that's also, nutrition is important too. But absolutely, yes. I mean, and you're obviously the expert. I would love to talk to you more about exactly how I can help with that effort.
What is your position on ranked choice voting? A state graduated income tax and addressing the tax cut supported by Governor Healy so funds can go to others from an equity perspective.
So I might need a clarification on that. My apologies, Cheryl.
So, yeah.
So gradual income tax, or?
Well, it's two things mixed in one, in my opinion. It
Okay.
popped up in the chat, but what is your position on ranked choice voting?
So I would need to know what that is. I apologize. Ranked choice voting.
Okay, it's the voting system. It's current system that Cambridge is using. It's some,
Okay.
You're familiar?
No.
Where more than one candidate, ranked choice voting, it's about ranking.
Oh, I'm sorry, ranked choice. My ears, God gave me 2 ears, but I guess they're not working tonight. You said ranked choice for voting.
Yes.
So I talked to a young lady on the square about this at the recently during the last cycle when we were voting on it, and she kind of convinced me it's a good thing. And I'm not I'm necessarily great at math. My brother was brilliant at that stuff, but I definitely think there's some definite merit. So I would support at least looking further into it. I'm surprised it didn't pass.
Okay, from Dan Curry. Okay, I'm going to ask these last two questions. From Dan Curry, since I believe you will be exempt from the public records law at the State House, what do you think of Auditor Zoglio's proposal to audit this legislation?
So that's an interesting one. And, I guess I'd start by saying that my pledge is to be as transparent as I can. So I'm going to be posting my votes on the website, taking pledges to do that. I don't quite understand. I shouldn't make a joke of this. I shouldn't make a light of it, but it's almost like you go up to the Beacon Hill and something in the cafeteria in the air or something says that. So I don't quite understand why we wouldn't just share our votes like every other democracy. You need to basically, you represent the people. They need to know how you're voting, even if they disagree with that should be transparent. So yeah. And then with regard to the auditor general, I feel like that, she has, it's one of those things where she's been a representative, she's been a senator, she's now the auditor. So she knows something I don't, and she wants to audit. So I don't see why wouldn't you just allow, I guess my question is, why wouldn't you just allow an audit to happen? So it doesn't really make, so yes, I would support that audit. I know there's outside firms that do that. I started off in my career doing some finance. I can see how an outside firm may not capture every nuance in something that maybe where she's going. I need to learn more about it, I'll be honest, but directionally, I'm going to show everybody how I'm voting. And I feel like from a voting perspective or from a financial perspective, we work for you. We represent you, and everything I do is through the lens of the voters. So yes.
Right. And the last question for this evening, Will you vote for change in rules in-house to create real transparency, including committee votes, which you kind of just touched upon?
Yes, yes, I would. I would.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the questions that we have for you this evening, and truly appreciate you spending the time to share with the community your views on these issues that are really important to all of us. I want to thank all of the participating organizations that pulled this together, Ward 4, CPA, EBA, Reclaim Roxbury, and MassVOTE. Thank you so much for all of your diligence and your work in making this town hall happen today, and giving the community an opportunity to just hear from Mr. John Moran. So with that being said, thank you. And I want to toss it over to Jonathan. Did you want to close us out?
Sure, I'm happy to do a quick closeout. Let me add myself to Spotlight. Okay, so I want to again thank you to everybody for joining us this evening, taking time out of your taking the time to learn more about the upcoming election. As we noted, this election is coming up soon, and it is a tight timeline sprung in the middle of May when people probably not thinking about voting. So it was always important for people to be aware of special elections as they happen, because the best way to getting people into good voting behavior is to vote in every single election. And I believe MassVOTE has signs about voting in every election, and I love those signs, so I want to give a shout out. And that means that it's Tuesday, May 2nd and Tuesday, May 30th are the dates for this election. Tuesday, May 30th, which I believe is right after Memorial Day. So especially make sure that people know that elections are coming up, because they're a vital part of our democracy, and having an engaged and informed electorate is so key to that. So again, I want to thank everybody joining us this evening, and again, reiterate Cheryl's appreciation to all of the organizations kind of co-sponsoring this evening together, and thank all of you for taking the time and then taking time to let neighbors know that an election is happening. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Make sure to use AC or drink water or use a fan.
Thank you, everyone, for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Again, good night. Thank
Night.
you.
Great work, Jonathan.